For every one Indian soldier, you need 8 Chinese soldiers, equipment, supplies.
On a day that India and China are holding their seventh round of talks on the LAC standoff, I have with me two people who know China like the back of their hands. Let me introduce Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli, a professor in Chinese studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University, and Atul Aneja, an eminent journalist and a strategic affairs expert. Advantage India or China if this standoff continues for or drags at the LAC?
There is one division, high infantry mountain division, that has been deployed from Kashgar in Xinjiang, because Aksai comes under the Xinjiang military sub-district. Then you have also one high infantry mountain division from Aksu, again in Xinjiang, that has been deployed for Pankungso, for the Gogra Heights and Galwan area and others. So they have to feed these in the winter. And visibly, there has been a distance. The supply lines are lengthy in the case of China compared to that of the Indian side. You mentioned about the supplies that India had done. It is estimated and was reported in the papers that 150,000 tons of materials, food, etc., has been stocked up by the Indian side. We don't have concrete figures for the Chinese side, but they also have mobilized the light tank, which is about 35 tons capacity weight. They also have several armored personnel carriers and new helicopters, unmanned aerial vehicles, and J-20 or other fighter aircraft. These have been deployed, but geographically, India has an advantage in this region, which includes for instance, the Air Force in China on the Tibetan side, Xinjiang side. They have no oxygen levels, and their airfields are limited, so their weapon carrying capacity is limited. That problem doesn't exist for the Pune-borne or Ambala-borne aircraft for Indian Air Force or others. Indian Air Force could mobilize over 400 tons an hour or two from the nearest ports, and so there is an advantage that India has, both in terms of warfare in high altitude areas, as well as in terms of logistics build-up. So there is an advantage that India has, and this is one reason why the whole thing has been dragging for about 6 months. The Chinese plan of overall invasion never happened. The Chinese plan of a local skirmish never happened, except for the fisticuffs and other things on the Galwan Valley on June 15th night. The third scenario that they planned, which is to keep dragging the whole thing further and see to it that there is a war of attrition, that the Indian side gets worn out with the kind of spending, with the kind of winter preparations, etc. Even that is not working at the moment, because the Indian side also has given signaling that they are prepared to. Even if Pakistan joins in a two-front war, it is likely, because in 2009, the then Indian Army chief mentioned that they are now prepared for a two-front war under nuclear threshold. That's what the 2009 preparation from the Indian Armed Forces. So we are almost 11 years in terms of Indian Armed Forces preparation on two-front war. The mountain terrain would suggest you require at least 1:8 combat capability. That is, for every one Indian soldier, you need 8 Chinese soldiers, equipment, supplies, concentration of forces, and ammunition. But that is not possible in this kind of terrain. So I don't see the PLA winning anytime soon, which means the war of attrition is going to actually affect the PLA much more than that of the Indian side.
It's a battle of wits, battle of attrition, and India's is standing, I think, at an advantage, especially after what we already discussed was the Special Frontier Forces did on the 28th, 29th, on the 29th and 30th. But more than that, I think is also on the diplomatic side, things are moving more towards the Indian side than towards the China. In fact, you had a Pew poll which came out on world opinion towards China, and majority of the world is now opposing China. So you do have the world public opinion also behind you, along with the Quad which is happening. So I do think in the long haul, if we play our cards well, both on the military side with the Indo-Pacific Quad, and very strongly, I think we need to rework our relationship with the Russians. And there are signs that the China-Russia relations, which has a pretty bad history, by the way, which Srikanth is very well aware of, that is a marriage of convenience. So if we can also work on the Eurasian-Russian flank along with the Indo-Pacific flank, then we have a sort of a China caught up in a pincer. And I think there's a possibility to move in that direction. As I said earlier, especially if the Trump administration comes into power.